Okay, so Minnesota has, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the details in a couple more slides, but we just completed a year and a half long test of three of the four debris removal devices they're intended for a service patrol. So this picture is from the EDC 7 get together that we hosted last year. Um, the truck on the left has the JAWS device, which is from Missouri DOT. The one in the middle has the Incident Clear, which is the contractor for the Service Patrol. Colorado DOT uses, few other states use, and then the one on the right is the Swiper, which is also a Missouri DOT um, Missouri DOT thing that they created. Next slide. Okay, so for background, Minnesota's Service Patrol is called FIRST, Freeway Incident Response Safety Team. It's relatively small, 21 drivers, two supervisors. Everybody is a state DOT employee. Same thing with the Traffic Management Center. We're all state employees. Specific job class for the Service Patrol, so it's not like it's borrowed from maintenance or something like that. They're specifically hired to be Service Patrol drivers. Same thing in the TMC. Historically, it's been 3/4 ton short box pickups, and then we had to move to 1 tons with the debris devices because of the front axle weight. We've had the Lightsys message boards for about 25 years, so that's been a big part of the program too, are the message boards on the trucks. We cover the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area, and it's basically two shifts, morning shift, afternoon shift, Monday through Friday, one or two trucks on the weekend. We're not 24/7. We're not on call. Um, we also do emergency and short-term traffic control. Once it kind of creeps into that hour and a half of traffic control, we would switch over to our maintenance department, which Minnesota has a huge state DOT maintenance. So we're covering that initial, very short-term emergency response. And also being a small group and being state employees and being union, I mean, the staff buy-in's got to be critical. It's not just like on the management level and say, hey, here's this thing, go do it. If it doesn't make sense to the drivers, if they don't feel like it's useful or it's helpful, it's not going to go anywhere. So the buy-in, just acknowledging that buy-in and the support from the employees is a big part for anything being successful. Next slide. All right, so I'm sure this will be familiar to other folks who do service patrols. Um, Ours responds to a whole variety of incidents, just like most of the other service patrols here do. Crashes, stalls, also debris, anything you can imagine on the freeway. But we also push vehicles. So every day we're pushing a vehicle out of the traffic lane, so we need the push bumpers. So this is the problem why you can't just put a plow on the front of a service patrol, is that you need the push bumpers as well as handling the debris. So the whole goal, safer, more efficient way to get debris out of the traffic lane. And the safety element is basically keeping the driver inside the truck. So at least they have some protection around themselves while they're clearing the debris out. And so we did a research. So it's bounced around for a while, how to try to move forward with this. We put in a research proposal in late 2020 to our maintenance. Our maintenance unit had a chunk of money every year that they can do for research. They can go out and buy something off the shelf if you want to try it out, want to test it out. So I mentioned this. This is what we got, about 100 grand out of them, which was pretty good. But I would also just mention this too, if you're state DOT or whatever, just keeping in mind there may be little bits of money around there, and it may be in a place where you've never thought to look or you don't actively think about. Just if you want to move forward with something like this, just something to keep in mind, that there may be money available for research that may be outside of your normal area. Next slide. All right, so short video just kind of sums up the whole concept here. If you're not familiar with this, I think it's a wood fence or something like that, or maybe part of a pallet that got dropped. You can see the service patrol trucks pulling up, and he's going to deploy the device. This is the Swiper, which is the Missouri DOT St. Louis office device that they came up with. And then that's it. Get the debris pushed to the shoulder. There was a nice gap in traffic, coincidentally, so that was good. That's the whole idea, right? Get the stuff out of the lane, slow down. You don't have to stop. You don't have to get out of the truck. You don't have to pick it up by hand. You can at least drag it off to the shoulder, still being in the truck. Next slide. Okay, so big shout out to Missouri DOT. The credit goes to all of this goes to Missouri DOT, who came up with a pair of these devices in their own shops. And so Missouri DOT's Service Patrol, pretty similar to Minnesota's. They came up with the JAWS device, which is in the top right, um, and the Swiper, which came out of the St. Louis office. Now, the JAWS device, JAWS is an acronym, Julie's Automated Waste System, just like a lot of other states, named after an employee who was struck and killed picking up debris. So that's where this all kind of started out on the Missouri side, was trying to come up with a safer way to do it. So we saw St. Louis had it. We've heard about St. Louis, or we've heard the Missouri had these devices. How do you get it going here in Minnesota? And if you, especially if you work on the DOT side, you know how it seems like a good idea, but actually moving it forward into a state level is a lot more complicated. So how can we bring this from Missouri to Minnesota? Next slide. Okay, and coincidentally, kind of when we were looking at all of this, it was kind of a big topic, just kind of coincidentally on a national level. So you had the lane blade device, which I know some folks on this call are probably familiar with, that came out of Pennsylvania Turnpike, and also Colorado DOT. They contract with Incident Clear, and they had come up with this device on the bottom right there. Next slide. Okay, so we got 100 grand from the research project. Just like everything else in the world, delayed by 2 years because of COVID, the chip shortage, everything like that. You know, ideally we'd be talking about this 2 years ago, but everything was delayed a little bit. So the 100 grand got us 3 devices. It got us the 2 Missouri devices, and it got us the Incident Clear device. We passed on Lane Blade just because the cost was not going to be something we'd be able to move forward with in Minnesota. We bought them from the existing vendors, which was kind of an obligation of where the money came from. It couldn't be something that we researched. We had to buy it from a vendor. 2 of the devices, our truck had to be shipped out of state. And then one of the devices was installed locally by a vendor. Had the 3 devices online, and basically you picked, the drivers share a truck, so we picked drivers, we picked routes that would be the most likely to use the device and give good feedback on it. Um, and then we also had a consultant on board with a relatively small contract to do the evaluation. And one of the things that they did was created a very basic survey monkey, like an 8-question survey monkey that the first drivers could fill out on the laptops in their truck after they'd used the device and they're in a safe location, just to say, did it work? Did it not work? And put in some comments on it. And that was super, super useful as part of this evaluation. Next slide. Okay, so October 23, 2 of the devices up and running. April 24, it took forever to get the 3rd device going. So finally, April 24, we had all 3 devices up. You know, and basically just summing up, say 1 device was pretty easy to get going. 1 device was kind of hard to get going, and the 3rd device was very, very difficult to get going. Next slide. Okay, so year and a half in, 253 total uses as of last week. You know, between Incident Clear and Swiper, pretty similar totals. The Swiper truck got hit in January, so it was out for 2 months, but I mean the totals are pretty similar. Jaws a little bit less. But really the big thing, 85% success rate between all 3 of them. That was incredible. That was way more even than what I had hoped for that we would get. And a 98% safety rating from the drivers. So 3 out of 253 uses, they said they didn't feel safe. 250 times they used it and they felt safe. That was incredible, especially how honest, you know, the employees are going to be. If they don't like it, they're going to be honest about it. And that was really incredible to be able to see both that high of a success rate and that safety rating. Next slide. Okay, so challenges, if you know, if you're thinking about one of these debris devices, challenges, and this kind of goes across with all of them, flat debris, so recap, you know, signs, metal sheeting, stuff like that. It's going to be very hard to grab it. The devices tend to just kind of skip over the top. Rolly devices, so, you know, cylindrical stuff, pipes, tree limbs that have been cut off, We had one with a fire extinguisher. The problem is that the truck tries pushing it, it gets a spin, and if you turn too quick, it'll spin off and it'll go back out in the lane again. Also, the extreme cold, kind of a Minnesota thing, but the extreme cold was had a hard time with the pneumatics on some of the devices and keeping them working. We did some changes on all the devices. We added cameras to one of the trucks. It didn't come with a device that didn't come with them. So again, if you're looking at these debris devices, highly recommend a camera, especially pointed right down, so that the driver can see whether they have the debris captured or not, and if it's starting to spin out or if they're going to lose it. We also added claws to the swiper device, which helped kind of grab stuff a little bit too. And we had to do rewiring on a couple of devices, which really kind of points towards, some vendor specific issues. Next slide. Okay, so overall, a successful project. I mean, I would say it was even more successful than I had hoped it would be. Overall, positive remarks, some honest caveats about when it didn't work and some of the concerns, but overall, the drivers that used it liked using it. I'll add in that the JAWS device broke about 2 months ago. One of the drivers was pushing a dead deer out of the lane. It was fine on the pavement, fine on the shoulder. He got into the grass, it hit the dirt, and it basically broke underneath it. So that was the end of the JAWS device. Next one. All right, so the swiper device, good results. I mean, it worked. It had a relatively low amount of failures, also the least amount of drama to get it installed. You can hit the next one. Um, Modular process. So basically, we order the device. It comes attached to the push bumper, and then we have it installed locally. So it should hopefully be a little bit easier as opposed to having to ship the truck out of state. The other really nice thing is it was, I mean, between a quarter and a half of the cost of the other ones. So really, really not very expensive. So it was a lot easier for us to ask for money, and we were successful in getting enough money to buy 10 of these, which should be enough to get our entire fleet instrumented, at least up to maybe one or two. We should be able to get the entire working fleet with the swiper on board, hopefully by next year. And the devices should all be coming in the next couple of weeks and then getting them installed. So that's super cool. That moved ahead really fast, a lot faster than I hoped. Next slide. Okay, so what about you? Um, I would strongly suggest if you if you have to respond to debris, very strongly suggest that you look at adding this on. Not 100%, but boy, it is definitely a step forward. I would even add on to it if you're not directly an SSP, but maybe you do some light or emergency maintenance, maybe you're a bridge crew or a tunnel crew, something like that. Um, or if you're out in a rural area and you occasionally have to respond to different kinds of debris, and putting a plow on the front of your truck is not really practical. There might be some options here. This would be something else that I would suggest expanding this out to. Next one. And a whole variety, right? You got a whole variety of choices. You can spend 5, 10 grand, you can spend 25 grand, or you can spend 40 to 50 grand. And just knowing it's not just about the cost. Sometimes it is easier to spend 40, 50 grand per truck than it is easier to spend less money. It's just, kind of knowing how things are in the States. There's a lot of different options out there if you're interested in doing this. A lot of different choices, what's going to fit, what's going to work with your state and your budget, and kind of how your practices are. Next one. Okay, so something else I would add in here too, just keeping in mind, two of these devices, the two that really started this, came from Missouri DOT, and they were things that they created. They worked with a vendor to kind of rough out, which means if you're the kind of state that has the resources to do this, um, throwing it out there, this might be the next, you guys might be the next one to be able to come up with a better device for it or an improvement to it. Um, and hopefully in a year or two, right, 85% is 95% because somebody out there in another state has made improvements to it. So I really just mentioned that as something else, that if you have the ability to do this yourself, um, we're all going to benefit for it. That's it. Thank you very much. And if you got questions, put them in there. We'll talk about it some more at the end. Thanks, everybody.